Hello chess friends and welcome to Zadov's chess channel, and welcome to a very special game that has been played recently on a great chess website, elitechess.org. It's a game played by the world champion Magnus Carlsen himself. This game wouldn't be so special as it was a bullet game, but it was almost a perfect bullet game. In this game, Magnus Carlsen had only 5 centipawn loss. I'm not going to review the centipawn loss of his opponent because really wild things happen in the end, but it was really almost a perfect bullet game, and it's really wild when you think about it more. You have only 1 minute on the clock and you play almost the best stockfish moves. Really wild stuff. And Magnus Carlsen gave an interview recently, and he was asked what is he thinking, should the world championship match always be played in this classical time format chess, and he actually mentioned sort of that he wouldn't mind if that games would maybe be rapid format, or maybe something like 1 hour on the clock without increment. But he actually also mentioned that the classical time format chess should always have place in the chess world, and I agree with him because classical time format chess is of course very important, but I still think that some of these tournaments could maybe be something like, as I said, 1 hour without increment on the clock, because we have seen also perfect, for instance, 30-minute games played by top grandmasters. So I think with this new engines, with this preparations, I think these players should not play so many of this classical time format chess, because this rapid and maybe this even blitz games are very dynamic for us to see, with many inaccuracies, with many mistakes, blunders. Then of course we can also see some beautiful tactical shots. So before we start to analyze the game, I wanted to also announce you that today we're continuing my series, how to become a master in chess. So please join me. Now it's around 11 o'clock here in Croatia. I'll start the stream in 2.5 hours, so it will be 1:30 p.m. Central European time, so you can join me. Please join me and invite maybe some of your friends that are beginners, so we can maybe also start to try to bring them some novelties of this beautiful chess strategies, of course, and also some other ideas in chess. So let's check out now the game. Here G3 played by Magnus Carlsen. His opponent, it was an international master under the name Mutpro. I'm not sure who that is. Maybe you know, maybe you can text me. I was very interested who that is, because Magnus Carlsen played many games against him, and this guy can play. He had also a great result against Magnus Carlsen. He won also many games, so he's around 3000 rated on Lichess. Here we have bishop to g2, knight to f6, knight to f3, and now bishop to g4. This is the main idea of this of Black's setup. Black is of course challenging the knight, and in some occasions, if this bishop gets challenged, we can take out the knight. But then it's very important to build a fortress on light squares. Whenever you give up maybe your light square bishop in an early stage of the game, then you want to put your pawns on that square that bishop covered. So castling e6, we have d4, bishop to e7, normal development, knight from b to d2. This is still main line. This is the so-called Hungarian opening. And what to do now? From Black's perspective, it would be maybe risky to break the position with the move c5. Of course, you're creating some dynamics, but you want actually to play this fortress on light squares. Here Magnus, after the move c6, played rook to e1 because the king is in the center. Whenever you see that your opponent's king is in the center, then you have to challenge it maybe with the e4 moves, and then to break the position in the center. Castling, Magnus plays e4 anyway. We have d takes e4, knight to e4, knight to e4, and rook to e4, bishop to f5, rook to e1. So this game has been played many times in chess history. I see still it's sort of a main line of this opening. What we can notice that white has a little bit more space, because white can play the move c4, will occupy of course the fourth rank. Black has a powerful control still over the d5 square, and has, I think, a great bishop's activity. So black hasn't lost any of this bishop's activity. Still this knight can be maneuvered, knight to d7, knight to f6, so still opportunities for both sides. Knight to d7, c3, Magnus fixes the pawn on d4. We have queen to c7, finishing the development. So there are, as I always like to say, there's 3 stages of the opening: developing your minor pieces, securing the king by castling, and maneuvering the queen from the first rank connected to the rooks. So now black is fully developed here. So queen to b3, we have queen to b6, challenging the queen, bishop to f4, and now rook to d8. We have knight to d2, and Magnus Carlsen is maneuvering the knight to c4, knight to d6. That's actually the weak square in black's position. That's really a great target for white. Here we have bishop to d3, knight to c4, and now bishop takes c4, queen to c4. And what we can notice now, of course, that white has the advantage of the bishop pair. Still nothing went wrong for black, I think, because black needs still to keep the position on light for simply compact when we don't have the bishop pair. So still black has opportunities to play knight to f6, and then to play the move knight to d5, cementing the position simply around this very important square on the board. So when you play with the knight and a bishop against the bishop pair, one of the best strategies actually is simply to get rid of at least one of these bishops. It's a simple strategy. It doesn't sound complicated, I think, but actually our goal is here simply to chase the bishop. So here after move knight to f6, queen to b3, we have bishop to d6. You see now this idea, simply trade one bishop, and then I think black is perfectly fine. Black has a simplified game. Bishop to g5, bishop to e7, h4, rook to d7. We have bishop to f3, here rook to d8, queen to b6, and now a takes b6. Okay, black has maybe now the double pawn structure, but it's not such a huge problem, I think. Still this position can be improved with moves as b5, and still continuing our blockade on light course, and then maybe even try something like knight to d5 and simplify the position. So a4, Magnus blocks of course this move. b5 would be very bad for white positionally. b5, then maybe even rook to a8, attacking here maybe the weak a2 pawn. Here a4, we have h6, bishop to c1, we have bishop to d6, king to g2 by Magnus Carlsen, bishop to c7, and now b4, expanding on the queen side. But still, this is a very problematic position, I think, for white. White cannot create a pass pawn. You would love to create a pass pawn, then maybe with the bishop pair, with the support of the bishops, white could have a comfortable game. But still, it's very hard here to create some kind of a pass pawn, although you have here, I think, this 4 versus 3 situation. So that's the side that we should attack, especially when your bishop is aiming towards that side. But still, it's very hard to create a passer. So here knight to d5, we have rook to a3 by Magnus, knight to e7. So as I said, so far no inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders by both of these players, and now it's actually Magnus that makes his first inaccuracy into the game. It's now a bad move because you're risking after b takes a5 that was played in the game. After b takes a5, now this isolated pawn, and the isolated pawn, you see, it's really a weakness. Now this pawn can be simply attacked in the game. Rook to a8, played by international master Mood Pro. We have a6, Magnus splits the pawn chain here. We have b takes a6, and now bishop to a3. Magnus attacks simply the knight, which is of course the protector of the pawn on c6. So here bishop to d6, bishop to d6, rook to d6, and then actually here I think black has a comfortable game. Black can still cement the position around the square d5. If this knight get challenged with c4, then of course you weaken then the d4 square, so this pawn chain can never stay like this. Here rook to a1, knight to d5, we have c4, but now knight to b4. So this international master Mood Pro played really the best lines here. Rook to a4, attacking the knight, knight to c2, attacking the pawn. We have bishop to e4, and now here black simply traps another pawn. Here rook to a6, we have f5, kicking away the bishop, and now a great counterattack c5. So this was actually the only move that helps out here Magnus Carlsen. If he wouldn't have played this move, it would be a losing game, I think, for the world champion. We have rook to d8, bishop takes c6, now rook to c8, attacking the bishop, and now Magnus finds good attacking opportunities. We have bishop to e7, bishop to d7, rook to c5, and now rook to d6. Counterattack against the knight. Here rook to c4 was played, and here Magnus finds a good simplification line, rook to e6. If you take out, of course, then you get bishop to e6, and it will be game over. So here king to f7, we have rook to d6, king to e7, and now rook to d5. simply protecting everything. Now this rook cannot be attacked by the king. That's the most important thing of this setup. We have g6 h5, g takes h5, bishop to f5, here h4, now g4, bishop to f6, bishop to e4, and now rook to b4, here king to h3. Magnus still is trying to win this endgame because he can maybe connect these pawns here with f4, then maybe create a passer here with f5, kick away the king is also an opportunity. Still, the position is equal if you play this endgame correctly. Here knight to e6 was played. Of course, here this idea doesn't bring you so much because your bishop is hanging, so first you have to secure the bishop. Here rook to f5 played by Magnus. We have king to g7, f3, and now here the fork knight to g5. You see black found good ways to defend this position. We have a knight, king to h4, knight takes e4, f takes e4, rook to e4, king to g3, rook to e3, and now after rook to f3, this international master Mood Pro played rook to a3. Probably it was a mouse slip or something. He lost the game eventually. But as I said, Black played here an outstanding game without any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. You can put the PGN in the stockfish analysis. It will show you it was almost really a perfect bullet game. And then, as I always like to think about chess, sometimes even through the whole day, I always wonder where are the limits of chess. You see, this was an outstanding game, I think, by both of them. Maybe it wasn't so special with some great attacking opportunities, but I think Magnus Carlsen is a great positional player, and when you're a great positional player, then it's very, very easy for you to find the best next tactics, because you see Magnus had a compact position. He played this bishop middle game. He made it in accuracy, but then he found some good ways, good tactical ways to get out of this mess. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I wanted to show you this game as this was suggested to me by one of my followers. Thank you again for this game. As I said, please join me now in maybe 2 hours on the stream, how to become a master in chess. I've prepared again a new subject. I think we can learn something more. Please join me. I think this is a very, very important series, so I invite everyone, even if you're a beginner, even if you don't know anything about chess, I'll help you also it's not a problem. I prepared of course a new subject, but if we really have newcomers, really beginners, then I'll start also some things for them. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. If you want to see more Magnus Carlsen games, check out my Magnus Carlsen series, his career from the beginning. Here is the link. And if you want to see maybe the best chess games of all times, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.